Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It occurred to me today that I have not done any updated foundation, eyebrow, skincare, any of those routines in a really long time. And as you know, as you evolve into the world of makeup, you kind of adjust your look and the way you do things as you learn. And so the way that I do my foundation and the way that I do my eyebrows and all those things are very different than they used to be. So I'm going to begin with the foundation, which is foundation. So if you'd like to see how I put on my foundation, what I use, and how I apply it, please keep watching. Okay, to start things off, I thought I would go ahead and show you the tools that I use most days. Occasionally I change this up, but for the most part, these are the tools that I use. Initially, I use my fingers to put on my skincare, but once I get to the foundation part, I ordinarily will squirt it on the top of my hand because most of my foundations have pumps. But I go ahead and dot it all over my face, and you'll see me do that. But occasionally I will use a paddle brush just to smooth it in and just kind of put a really nice beginning layer just to get it all distributed, not necessarily to blend it in. And then after that, I use my trusty beauty blender. I just really can't find anything that I like better than this. The finish of this is what absolutely makes it look airbrushed, and I can't find anything I like better. When I get to the concealer part, I like to use this mini blender, and this is from Real Techniques. This is an actual real beauty blender. I do like the Real Techniques, the orange sponge, something complexion sponge. Anyways, I like that one too, but for the most part, I really like the regular beauty blender the best. But I do use these little baby blenders on my under eye so that I can really get into the places that the bigger blender can't go. But I think one of the initial things that we do that a lot of people don't talk about, I think they do it, but I don't think they necessarily talk about how important it is, and that is a foundation primer or a skin primer. And I actually have several that I use. I've been trying out one that I got in a BoxyCharm from Dr. Brandt. It's okay, but I want to show you my three favorites. My very first favorite is Professional, and I like to use this. This is from Benefit. I like to use this around my T-zone area and my forehead where I've got deeper lines and where I have enlarged pores, because this really smooths it and fills it in. The only thing that is a little bit of a drawback about this is it tends to ball up if you try to put it on over a moisturizer that hasn't had time to set in, and there are some moisturizers that it's going to ball up on. I don't know what's in each one that makes them not play well together, but they don't. If I'm wanting some luminosity and need to add some dewiness to my face, I'll use the Becca Backlight Priming Filter. This is a really nice luminous foundation primer. It is luminous, but it shows through your foundation, and it's not like super shiny or anything. I just really like that when I'm wanting a little bit more glow. And I'll actually use these in combination, this on like my entire face, and then I'll go over my T-zone with this. As a finishing step, which seems extraordinarily extra, but, well, that's kind of cute, isn't it? Extraordinarily extra. That's me. I have to add 15 steps, right? But anyways, what I was going to say is, as a finishing step before I start any of the actual foundation application, I like to use the Photo Finish Primer Water by Smashbox. I really love this. It just gives your skin an added element of hydration. I don't even know what it is, but it does increase the longevity of my makeup, and it just really finishes off the underlying foundation. I'm finding myself getting tongue twisted and not confused, but I'm finding myself making sure that I am making sense because I keep saying the foundation, because the primer is actually the foundation for the foundation, right? So, in this order, my face is always moisturized, cleansed and moisturized. In this order, if I'm using all of these. First, the Becca all over, then the Benefit Professional around my T-zone, and the finishing primer water spray. And I'm getting ready to do that to show you exactly how I do it. I use one pump of the Becca, and we'll go from there. And we'll throw it on the ground, and then we'll go from there. I feel like we have our foundation for our foundation. Right now, I am using a new foundation that I'm testing out, and that's the Super Stay by Maybelline. But since I haven't really found a way to make that work for me fully, I'm going to go back to what I was using before that was tried and true. So the combination that I've been using is the Too Faced Peach Perfect along with the CoverGirl Outlast All Day Stay Fabulous 3-in-1 with the longest name ever. I use this one for coverage and to lighten this little concoction. So I start off with 2 pumps of the Too Faced, and then you can see how dark it is, and then I add 1 pump of the Nude Beige in the Outlast, and you can see that's quite a bit lighter, and when I mix those together they make a nice shade that's real close to the right one. So I make a little cocktail on the back of my hand first, mix it all together, and then I'll go in and dot it, starting at the center area of my face and kind of working my way out. But I start with the concentration of most of it in the center where I need the most coverage, not necessarily on the outer perimeter of my face that doesn't really, and down my neck a little bit. And this is when I use the paddle brush. I just go through and just kind of go in circular motions and just spread it out where it's kind of like a beginning layer, and that makes it sound like I'm going to cake on 18 layers, and I'm not, maybe not, but this just kind of gets us started. Okay, so, and I look ghostly, I understand that, but it gets better. So I do have my Beauty Blender moistened, but what I'll do is wrap it up in a towel and just squeeze out the excess where it's not very wet. I want it to be damp. There's kind of like a happy medium. I want it to be damp, but I don't want it to be sopping wet. If it's sopping wet, it will dilute your foundation to make it look crazy. And if it's too dry, then it won't smooth out the way you'd like it to. So now you can see that I have a layer of foundation on, but I still can see all my freckles. I still have discolorations in different places, and that's when I go back in with my Beauty Blender and what's left here. So I just dip it in there, and again I start at the center of my face, and I go in pretty heavy in the areas where I have the most freckling and discoloration, and I start there. And now I just start bouncing. Every time I do this, I think of that R. Kelly song where he goes, bounce, 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 bounce. I think it's Ignition. Hot and fresh out the kitchen. Anyway, you guys will see I have a song for every occasion. So I'm now bounce, 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 bounce. And I'm really just going about the rest of it to smooth it, and I just bounce over everything really. And sometimes it seems like I'm doing this excessively, and I probably am, but I don't want any like big concentrations of foundation to be kind of collected in one area, especially like these areas where I have deeper lines. I don't want the foundation settling. So, in fact, my friend Lola, just today actually, gave me a tip for spraying my Beauty Blender with setting spray and going over it. And I am going to try that. Not today, just because there is a hair that is giving me all kinds of grief. Just because I want to show what I ordinarily do. And this is what I ordinarily do. And of course, variations. I try new things, but this is kind of like the basics, like Foundation 101. Okay, so I'm feeling happy about that. What I'm getting ready to show you, and I just use the wet Beauty Blender to wipe the rest of the foundation off of my hand, and there have been times that I did not do that, and I went to school with a giant orange looking spot on the back of my hand. It was very cute. So this was the game changer for me when it came to being able to have really the smoothest skin that I could have. When you're 46 and you used to be a sun bunny and you tanned every day and you went to the lake, you end up with things on your face that you have zero control over, but you wish that you had known better. I'll just put it that way. You know, I can remember specifically laying on a floater in Jamaica, letting the sun just bake my face. Bad idea. But anyways, let me get back to the point here. What I was talking about, this is the game changer in making my face look as smooth as it possibly can. I have lots of favorite setting powders. Obviously, my favorite is Laura Mercier Loose Translucent Setting Powder. I don't even have one here because I'm forcing myself to try some other ones. And the ones that I'm going to show you are really excellent powders, very comparable, as is the Cover FX setting. I think it's called Perfect Setting Powder. It's wonderful too. And I have one, but I have 3 open. I'm going to use these before I open any more, but those are all good choices. The first one that I really love is Peach Perfect from Too Faced. It has a peach color, it has a peach flavor, it has a peach scent, but it's not annoying or overwhelming to me at all. The next one is the Born This Way Ethereal Setting Powder by Too Faced, and this one is more of just a regular translucent color. And then we've got the MAC Patrick Star. It's just called Patrick's Powder. And this one has a bit of a pink undertone. And so kind of, I don't really choose them based on that. I like the way all of them look. And the reason I love them is because they're very finely milled. And if you apply them the way that I apply them, at least for me, it's a beautiful finish. And my face looks so soft. It feels so soft. It just looks beautiful. And so, yeah, those are the setting powders I use for my face. For my eyes, I have not found one that I like better than the Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder. And so that's what I use to set my eyes. And I just wanted to get through that before I went into this routine. As you can see, I have really dark circles under my eyes. And partially from heredity, our family has dark circles under their eyes. And I think that's kind of a Native American thing sometimes. The other thing is, you know, I have a chronic illness, and so I'm not particularly healthy, and so a lot of times it shows in my skin, especially under my eyes. I look really exhausted and tired even when I'm not. But to combat that, I use the Tarte CC Color Corrector. There's another one called, it used to be called Erase Paste, but now it's called Boing something or other. Anyways, there's an equivalent for it. And I like it, but I like this one better because it has a salmony color. It really cancels out the darkness under my eyes. And so before I conceal, I go in and color correct. I basically just put some on my ring fingers, and then I just start patting underneath where it's the darkest and then work it out. I try to wipe away what gets in my inner corner as much as I can. And this doesn't look smooth. It doesn't really melt in that well, but once I put the concealer on top of it, it works itself out great. I'm going to go ahead and make sure my beauty blender, my mini blender is ready. Make sure as you work with it, you'll figure out what your favorite or what the perfect moisture level is on these things. The next one that I put is Tarte Shape Tape. And I just recently got a new tube of this, and it is the Light Medium Honey. The other one that I was using was Light Medium, and I liked it just fine. It just had a little bit too much yellow in it for me, just a tad. And this one is a little bit more neutral. So I'm going to go ahead and put that under my eyes and blend it out with the mini blender. I go in with a upside down triangle, and I kind of keep it real close because it blends, it spreads out a lot. You give me that toot toot. Or you give me that beep beep. There's a remix to Ignition, hot and fresh out the kitchen. Mama rolling that body, got every man in here wishing. Okay, after that, I take the beginning Beauty Blender and just kind of go around the perimeter of this, just so that there's not any kind of stark line that says concealer foundation. And now it's time to set my under eyes. And I use the Laura Mercier Secret Brightening Powder. And this is the game changer part, the powder being applied with the damp blender. I must have tried 800 combinations of concealer and powder on my eyes, under my eyes. I couldn't leave it without setting it, or it would crease or just completely melt away. And when I was setting it, it looked like sandpaper. It was so wrinkly and crepey and terrible. And this kind of looks kind of crepey when I first start, but by the time I get done with the rest of my makeup, it's kind of become one with my skin. And so I love that. But anyway, I'm going to go in and I get about that much on my Beauty Blender, and then I just tap it under, just kind of in the same formation that I did the concealer. And I don't bake. When I bake, it gets extremely crepey. And so all I do is just make sure it's nice and pressed in, and then I move on to the other eye. Occasionally the sponge will be just a tad bit too wet, and I'll feel like I don't have enough. And so that's when I just kind of go back in and add a little, and it's usually right here in this little area where it kind of has a recess back into my skin, kind of a little dent that looks dark no matter what I do to it usually. But all right, so the under eyes set, and so now I'm going to go in and set my foundation. I'm going to use Peach Perfect because after this video I'm going to be filming an eye look using the Just Peachy palette, and so I just feel like having a theme. But I really love the way that they have been, most of the powders are now having one of these little covers that keep all the powder from like spilling all out. I like that. But I start out with it in the cap. I use the side of this Beauty Blender and I get about that much. And I do go in quite heavy because it kind of works its way into your skin. And I mostly just do the center of my face with this part. And I press pretty hard. I press it in. And sometimes I'll let it sit there for a little on my smile lines. It kind of helps those from creasing. And if you feel like you're losing all the moisture, just move it around to another spot. And I think this method would work for anybody, but I think it would work particularly well for mature skin. Okay, so that's that with the setting with the sponge. I'm looking around because all of a sudden my brush disappeared. So now I just take this giant no name, I think I got it from Morphe, fluffy brush, put a little bit on it, and now I go around the rest. This just makes sure that everything is set, everything is smooth, and I don't do this until after I've done my bronzer and highlighter and blush, but I do go in with the setting spray before I do the rest of my face, like my eyes and lips and all that. I set it down, and once I do the setting spray, everything just kind of melts in. The powderiness of it kind of goes away, and it's beautiful. I don't think I'm going to continue on with the bronzer and blush and all that because this is basically primarily for a foundation, and this is where I stop with foundation. The next video I'll do, once I could speak, the next video I'll do will be bronzer, blush, highlighter, and I do that in a very simple way. I don't go as in-depth into that as a lot of people do. I'm not a fan of really sculpting my face, but I do enough to accentuate my features. So that'll be coming up next. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do that before you go. And until next time, take care and God bless. Bye, guys.